Moss review for the PlayStation VR.
Let's begin!
First up, let's take a look at the gameplay. In this game you guide a little mouse called Quill as she looks for her uncle. She controls great and her weight feels perfect thanks to how high she can jump. To help her navigate through each location, you can interact with the environment. Your controller appears as an orb in the game. You can use this orb to pull, push and twist certain parts of the environment, which enables Quill to reach other areas. These platforming puzzles are reasonably simple. There was only really a couple that made me sit back and think for a few seconds. They are fun to work out, and because you are literally changing the environment for Quill to proceed, it makes you have a bigger bond with her, especially when you solve a puzzle and she looks at you and raises her hand for a high five. The combat is incredibly simple, thanks to there not being a massive variety in the enemies, and them not having many attack patterns. Quill can attack back using a sword and can dodge by pressing the X button just before an enemy strikes. Both are very responsive. Sometimes an area gets blocked off and you must fight waves of enemies. To help Quill with these overwhelming numbers, you can grab an enemy to take control of them. Controlling enemies also comes into play with many of the puzzles, where you must guide them to a pressure plate or command one to shoot a switch. It can feel a bit odd having to control both Quill and an enemy at the same time, but it doesn't take too long to get the hang of it. If Quill loses a lot of life, a throbbing heart is heard and red particles appears from her back. To heal her, you must grab her. This makes the bond between you and her even bigger, as you have to physically touch her to help her. The game's collectibles come in the form of scrolls. These can be quite hard to spot considering they don't have a glow around them, like many other games' collectibles do. Finding these really do demand a proper inspection of the environment, especially as some are hidden behind the environment itself. If Quill goes behind the environment, you can still see her, so there is never any fear of losing track of her or getting her stuck. Now let's take a look at how immersive this game is. Everything is very crisp and sharp. The attention to detail really is astonishing in this game. Every new location you enter does appear handcrafted. Every single piece of vegetation has been placed manually instead of using a random generator, and it really does make each area so much more scenic. Vines curl around rocks and plants have a slight shine to them. It really does look beautiful, especially with sunlight beaming through an opening. The atmosphere is simply amazing. Quill's animations are superb throughout, especially when she clambers up the environment, thanks to her having more than one animation. She is incredibly tiny when compared with her surroundings. You really get a good sense of just how small she is thanks to the size of the grass, but you also get a great sense of how big you are in the world too, thanks to the location's backgrounds. Seeing a massive castle in the background or seeing the top of trees above you really does scale you down too. Even the animations coming from your guide has been given a lot of thought. It may only be moving along a linear path the whole time from point A to point B, but it speeds up and slows down at just the right moments to make it feel very alive, and the particle effects are some of the best I've seen in a PSVR game, also thanks to how crystal clear the image is. Quite a bit of the story is told through voiceovers as you flick through pages of a book. Turning each page feels great as the paper does have a physics engine attached. Nearly every page has some sort of effect or animation on. It really does feel like you're reading a book from a Harry Potter movie. The voiceovers are amazing and really gives off a fairy tale vibe.
They called it the Cinder Night. What came from those dark, starless skies would change the world of Moss forever. Just on the other side is the mire, the starling assured her. There's a good chance your uncle's still there.
The sound effects are also incredible and helps with the scale of the world too. The quiet tapper of her feet as she runs along the ground really is perfect. And once again, your scale is really made apparent too, by the sounds coming from the trees all around you. You hear branches snap behind you and above. The ambience is always spot on, and it really does ground you in the world that much more. It is some of the best I've experienced in a PSVR game. The music nails each of the environments it's heard in, and it gives a sense of wonderment overall. Now let's take a look at the setup and what controllers the game supports. I played this game in a seated position just under 2 meters away from the camera. The head tracking was perfect and the game did not make me motion sick. I highly doubt people will get motion sick from this game, as you are always in a static position, even when you go from one location to the next. This game is played with a DualShock controller. The other controllers are not supported. When playing seated, you will have to lean forward quite a bit to interact with enemies and movable objects. Sometimes the environment was a bit too far away, so I had to recenter my position in the world. It's not too much of a problem, as you recenter by holding the options button like you do in most other PSVR games. Now let's take a look at the length of the game and what trophies come with it. It took me around 2 hours and 45 minutes to beat the game, but I was looking for the scrolls in every location. If you are not interested in finding the game's collectibles, your game time could very possibly be shorter, as long as you don't get stuck on one of the game's puzzles. If you are a trophy hunter, you will be happy to hear that there is a platinum up for grabs. In total there are 32 trophies that can be achieved. There is 17 bronze, 8 silver, 6 gold, and 1 platinum. As you would expect, quite a few trophies unlock over the course of the game, when main story events take place. There are also some that are tied to collecting things, which should increase your game time, such as collecting all of the relic dust and finding all of the scrolls. The problem is with the scrolls, it doesn't tell you how many you have left to find in each chapter, even after you beat the game, which really does make the task of searching for a couple you may have missed very tedious. Some trophies are also related to the environment, such as cutting down a lot of grass and breaking all of the objects in certain locations. There really is a lot of variety here, and it would take too long to explain each challenge. If you go into the game without taking a look at the trophies, you will most certainly have to play through the game again to get the platinum, as some are easily missable. And now it's time for the verdict. This is one of the best looking games on the PlayStation VR, and it really is thanks to each location's attention to detail. You can even see Quill's footprints as she runs through the sand. I do think people who appreciate art in video games will get the most out of this title, as it is very short for the price and doesn't have too much replayability. Action fans will find the combat really quite simple. Quill really could have done with some extra moves, or the enemies could have had more attack patterns to keep the more lengthy fights more engaging. It's not too bad when the bomb type enemy is introduced, as it makes manoeuvring around each battle a bit more tricky, but towards the end of the game, the battles did feel repetitive and I just wanted them to be over so that I could see the next beautiful location. Overall, Moss had a lot of hype to live up to, and it does certainly deliver. The puzzles are quite simple, but they ensured the game moved on at a steady pace. This really is an adventure that puzzle platformer fans should go on. It proves that third-person games really do have a place on the system, and games don't always have to be in first person to fully immerse you. The game really does shine with high quality throughout the adventure. Moss has got me thinking, do you think third-person games will always work better in VR when you're looking down at the character? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you enjoyed this review, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more PlayStation VR content.